right, everyone. Ha! Happy Wednesday to you. It is hump day. You got to get the horn straight off the bat. You must. It is, oh man, the best hour of your day in the new year 2023. Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces, episode number 45. Man, we are stringing them along. We got a great show for you as always. But, you know, I don't do this by myself. So I've got to bring to you the one, the only, the Gene Roddenberryinest person who feels like the future can be bright if we all just chip in. Many hands make light work. Mark Boatwright-Frost.
Hey, and happy 2023.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. And I know you don't watch that you don't look at what's coming beforehand. So this is the intentions and resolutions episode.
Intentions and resolutions. I got
Yeah.
to say, it sounds a little scary.
Yeah. So and by the way, what'd you do with Marwan? There's no purple here.
There, you don't see any purple?
Well, the couch, but not on you. You usually wear
Oh, well,
purple.
you know what? I've got lavender in my tie and also lavender on my socks, or purple in my socks.
Okay. I won't ask you to lift your socks up to show them.
There might be some purple in the watch too.
Yeah. Okay, just making sure that, Pod Person didn't take you over and stuff. For those of you who are ancient science fiction like viewers.
Good movie.
Yeah.
Oh, you talking about They Live with Roddy Piper? That's a good one.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about Day of the Triffids, but that's 1960s maybe.
Day of the Triffids or Human Body Snatchers? Is that
Yeah, Day of the Body Snatchers. They're like many of the same genre of idea, but Day of the Triffids was one of the earliest ones, and the pod person, because the plants had little pods and such.
Good stuff.
So I'm going to read an intro today instead of having the beginning words, because I had some thoughts about this. So welcome to 2023, all. I got a Facebook meme many times from many different people in the last 2 weeks of the year. And it said, nobody claimed 2023 as your year. We're all going to walk real slow and be good. Be quiet. Be respectful. Don't touch anything. And I wrote a response to that I wanted to share to everybody to kind of start today off. This is, I intend to bring people together and touch everything. Look at everything. Change perspective on everything. I will move as quickly as the situation permits, and I will be as loud as I can be. I always respect, I always have gratitude, but I aim to misbehave. And 5 points to anybody who knows the quote from my what I aim to misbehave is from.
I think about the Rev because he says that all the time at the end of his sermons.
Well, it was from Nathan Fillion playing Mal Reynolds in the movie Serenity.
Ah, good movie.
And
Got a lot of good movie references this morning or this afternoon.
Well, movies can teach us a lot. As a matter of fact, very shortly, as soon as we find a place to do it, we are going to offer a screening of Soylent Green.
Nice.
So we will be able to watch that. All right. So we don't have time to be quiet in 2023. This is a year to change. We need to come together and embrace our humanity. So I've got 5 questions, and you don't have to answer them right now. We'll get back to them. Do you like the life we are living? Do you think things are better? What are you willing to do to improve your life? What would that include making life better for others?
What was number 3?
Now, number 3 is, what are you willing to do to improve your life? Number 4 is, number 4 is, would that include making life better for others? Number 5, again, what does a better life include? This is from our Imagine episode a couple back. Oh, historically, whenever life gets hard for the masses, yes, I said masses, a revolution occurs. We have done this thousands of times, maybe even hundreds of thousands, and we end up in the same place doing the same thing that got us to revolt. Pretty revolting, huh? Yeah, I wrote that and I'm going to stick to it. Bad pun. Uh, what is being proposed is an intentional evolution where we transition to a different model and stop the cycle of revolution. Why now? Because we no longer have the time to revolve back to the same place and start again. Time keeps on ticking, ticking, ticking into the future. So, as a
Time keeps on ticking, ticking,
yeah, watch it,
ticking.
we'll get pulled for that.
I don't know if they can copyright the terrible of my voice.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to do a quick review of topics that we've discussed in 2023 or 2022. We talked about preparedness. We talked about grassroots change. We've talked about climate change. We've talked about history repeatedly. We've talked about economics and economic models. We've talked about philosophy. We've talked about government. We've talked about homelessness. We've talked lots and lots about perspective. We've talked about real security as opposed to implied security. We've talked about infrastructure ad nauseum. We've talked about neighborhoods, connecting, communication. We've talked about humanity and what that means and what we think it means. We've talked about psychology. We've talked about just recently the oceans and the health of the oceans. We've talked about resources. We've talked about words and how dangerous words are. And we've talked about how change occurs. We have discussed, we have argued, we have explained, we have implored, we have invited, we've even fed you to get you engaged. So here's our ask in 2023: show up, invite others, share the words, share the work, share the events, share, like, uplift the program, uplift the Kitsap Resiliency Project. Have conversations, challenge us because we get better when we get challenged, and engage. Our resolution is to continue to be here, continue to reach out, continue to work. If you bring your puzzle piece, it happens faster and we have better lives. So, what is your intention? Let the show begin.
What is really, really, really interesting is I have had separate conversations with folks, and this is the first time you and I have spoken the new year, right?
Mhm.
And so I've had these one-on-one conversations with you now, with the Rev. Shout out to the Rev, and another minister. Shout out to Brother Hank and myself. And in these conversations, we have all shared that we're going to be taking the gloves off in 2023, and we've all come to that independently. And I
Mhm.
think it's remarkable that that's where we're at. We um, tried to model behavior and show the way. You just gave a litany of all the things that we tried to do to bring people together in 22, and now it's like, look, just straight up. This is what it is. This is what needs to happen. 22 cannot look like 23. We can't be lackadaisical. We can't have a laissez-faire attitude. We've got to take action. We've got to take action now. So my only concern is I hope that we don't go too hard in it and turn people away. But we've tried hey, kumbaya, come on, everyone, let's come together, let's have a conversation. And now it's like, you know, you're holding the sandwich sign and saying, the end is nigh. Come on, let's go.
So, what's the first part of the name of these shows?
Well, this one, oh, the conduit.
No, tipping points.
Oh, tipping points. Yes.
Tipping points is straight up the 80-20 rule. 80% of the people are going to be pissed off. I posted a picture of Greta Thunberg's birthday coming up on Tuesday, and it talks about the work she's done, her beliefs, and the power she's created over the internet. And the first 2 responses I got on Facebook were laughs. So, yeah, social media is what it is. But I'd like to get back to the questions, and I'd like to have you and I talk about it a little bit.
Sure.
Said,
I'll put the first
do you
one up.
okay. So, do you like the life we are living?
Are
And
you
I'm gonna
asking me
toss
that?
that one out to yeah, I'm gonna ask you these questions, and then we can open it up to a
Woo.
wider audience.
So yes and no, right? The yes part, uh, in that I tell folks that I am on mission. So if you look at Maslow's hierarchy uh, of need, self actualization, I believe that I am achieving that. So I feel good about that, that I'm living my purpose. But the no is that my purpose is to do work like this, right? And there's so much work to be done. So ultimately, it's no, but I'm glad to be a change agent and not still sleep at the wheel and just, hey, it's too much to overcome. So what? I don't even see it. I don't want to see it. Any of those things. I'd rather, go down fighting.
Yep. So, do you think things are getting better?
Again, that's a mixed bag. Yes or no. Yes and no.
Mhm.
Through COVID, there were a lot of good things that came from that. And I won't remark on the deaths and all those things and some of the issues that seem to be related to maybe vaccine things that's going on. But the good that's come from it is it has forced some folks to come together, right? Obviously we haven't known each other more than 2 years, right? So we met
Nope.
during the era of COVID, right? During the age of COVID. And so I've met quite a few people during COVID, more people probably during COVID than the 3 years previous to COVID, right? In the 2 years. So if I do a comparison, I would say twice as many, and not only individuals but agencies. I did a end of the year kind of report in review, and I listed more than 60 agencies that we have tangibly have worked with, over the year, or have done things for, whether we were, sponsoring events fiscally for them, or covering things on the conduit, or providing services or transportation. So in that regard, things are getting better that way. However, when you look at climate change, when you look at the divisiveness of humanity, if you look at our food insecurity, no, things are going downhill rapidly. So no, because it
So,
doesn't offset the
oh,
good that's come.
okay. So, one question is in that list of agencies and such that you put, of course, you have resilient ecosystems.
Of course.
Okay. And then the other thing I wanted to say is this is the month that we put out our year end update. And it will be hopefully my focus willing done by the end of January. That's what I gear for every year. Is at the end of January I will have the year end update. It is usually about 6 or 7 pages of things that we have accomplished and things that we are focusing on and what we're looking to do in the next year. So as board president, I thought I would point that out to you, and that we will be doing a similar thing.
That is awesome.
So next is the question. Before I want to preface this question a little bit because we've done the yes and no in the two previous questions. It says, what are you willing to do to improve your life? Now I already know that you're working to be an agent of change. I already know that I personally know how busy you are all of the time. So given that those things are in play and understood, what are you willing to do to improve your life?
So, some things that I'm going to do from an individual standpoint, I'll be working on getting healthier this year. I think I need to be as healthy as I possibly can be as I age in order to do the most good for the longest amount of time. So, I had a back surgery last Friday. So I was gonna let that go into the new year, and G2 was like, no, you need to get it done. You can sit down during Christmas and in between New Year's. And then, there's some things that I didn't get a chance to do last year just because we were doing so much. And I really want to start growing food. I think that's really important to not only grow the food, to share my experience out and hopefully encourage and empower others to do so. So that's a big focus for me this year. So I would say health, growing food. I want to uh, from an individual and from an organizational standpoint. I want to continue to build on the relationships that have been made in the previous years and move those relationships forward, and just continue to empower others.
Excellent. And I would argue that growing food and taking care of your health are hand in hand. Both you get exercise and you get better food.
I'm worried it's not going to be very tasty or look pretty.
You need to be surprised. You would be very surprised. Do the basics and you'll have food growing and it will taste really good. So the side points on that. Okay, so question 4. What would you improve would what you improve oh, hold on. Would that include you wrote it differently than I had it, so I'm trying to translate it in my head. Would that include making life better for others?
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of answered four in there where I was saying not only do I want to grow, but I want to share my experience with growing and document that.
Mhm.
Another thing that I would add is, at the end of the year, I applied to be on the audit committee for the city of Bremerton, and I was voted in unanimous for that. And in that interview, I expressly made clear to them that look, this is supposed to be a democracy. It's we the people. I don't understand how the audit process works, so I will be learning, but I also intend to share that out with the community. And they clearly accepted that response, and I'm on the audit committee. So, understanding, where the money goes, how the money goes, if there's more efficient ways to spend the money here in the city, I think those things are important, and we have to get involved, right?
Yep,
Otherwise, we're
and
just making assumptions.
you're providing transparency, which the
Mhm.
city of Bremerton needs desperately. This is the least transparent government that Bremerton has ever had. And I'm not talking about the city council per se, because they are actually more transparent than they've ever been. But the government itself, the mayor and down, no one knows what's going on there. And I
Well,
know that
stay
you know that
tuned.
one of the very first things that I disliked about Mayor Wheeler when he went into office is he closed the mayor's office, put a camera on the door, and locked it, and the access to the mayor went from an open office to cut off completely.
Mm.
And I find that troubling. Not to mention being a nonprofit, as are you, involved in several nonprofits. The mayor's conference room was always open to nonprofits to use for meetings, and suddenly it wasn't. So a lot was lost when Mayor Wheeler took office. But enough digging on that gentleman. Fifth question: what would those changes include?
Uh, so,
I mean,
again, that
broadly, not personally, but broadly, what changes would you like to see in the world?
whew, man, you know what? The biggest one is I would like to see more people get involved with local politics. I'd like to see more people start doing some of their own personal gardens. If not, getting involved in some community gardens. I'd like to see people get more involved in emergency management and understanding that, a next pandemic is around the corner. Um, so we're being told. And this was, I won't say a dry run because, there were lives that were lost and lives that will be changed forever. But, it's kind of like, our economy, right? It's cyclical. Something is coming, even if it's 10 or 15 years from now. Something else is coming, and so we have to get ready. So I like to just see people, even if it's one thing, really just say, "Hey, you know what? I'm really going to be motivated to attack this and inform myself and educate others and really be an advocate for this thing." So and you can see that, right? All of a sudden, if you're on Facebook or in your social networks, you'll see people championing things and educating you on, hey, the Cayman Islands, right? Hey, what's going on in the Cayman Islands, right? What's happening here?
And
And
how
so
does
you'll
it
you'll be able
relate
to
to
see that.
us?
Yeah,
And how does it what going on in the Caymans relate to us and global effects?
absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, you mentioned emergency management, and the one thing you did mention that I want to bring in here from I'd like to see people in neighborhoods get connected. I'd
Mhm.
like to see them overcome cognitive dissonance. I would like them to start having conversations with each other, and I would like them to start growing food together, sharing skills together, watching out for each other, and having each other's backs. And I think that's the platform on which we can build a real emergency management system. So here's an observation. I drove yesterday and I went to St. Anthony's for my first time ever.
Really?
We, yeah, and so I had to find it, and I had to get off at Burnham and go through those traffic circles, which would be perfectly fine if the people driving in them weren't entitled pricks. Um, that the traffic circle coming off the freeway in Gig Harbor at Burnham Road is horrific. Trying to get through it and not um, not die in the process. Um, and then turning on and getting up to St. Anthony's, and suddenly it occurred to me, not for the first time, that our process of privatization of hospitals, of real estate, of all things that we depend on does not serve us well. Now, you and I have talked offline. I think we've even talked online about the issues with St. Michael's. And St.
Mm.
Anthony's is it performs much better from everything I've heard. I've never gone there, so I can't say. But it's on a two-lane road off of a really horrific intersection that is going to be very difficult to get to. While St. Michael's is better to get to, there are other issues that go along with that. We have an emergency management department in Kitsap County that is at the National Guard Armory, which is up a two-lane road in the middle of bloody nowhere that is going to be almost inaccessible during a major emergency.
Look at the flooding that happened in Port Orchard.
Yeah.
I didn't when they opened up the severe weather shelter and Stephanie was saying, "Hey, they're open tonight." And I'm like, "Why?" And she said, "Oh, it's a windstorm and then flooding." So then I'm on Facebook and I'm looking at pictures. I'm like, "Yeah, this has to be somewhere else." And then it says what the Lala Market or something like that. It's like,
Mhm.
wow, this is crazy. This is right in Port
It,
Orchard.
it is here. We
Mhm.
can no longer point at other places and think that we're immune. For
Yeah,
God's
that
sakes,
was something else.
in 2022, we had 110-degree temperatures repeatedly, followed by an ice storm over Christmas. So,
Not to mention what, 2 tornadoes in Port Orchard in the last,
yeah,
what, 5 to 10
few,
years?
yeah. So we can't point elsewhere. Weather's changing. That's one. Okay, so that's one thing. Weather is changing. You were talking about the economy being cyclical and things happening. The IMF just announced that we are heading into a very significant global recession. They also said that the US is the most resilient of all of the countries that will be affected, but that doesn't mean it's going to be good. And
Wow.
we're already pretty rocky for anybody who's actually paying attention to what was really happening as opposed to what's being reported. We have homelessness. We have jobs for $15 an hour. We have rents that are for people who can live, who can afford, or who are making $60,000, $70,000 a year. Um, it doesn't mesh up. So there are already things going on. We have climate change, we have that, we have Cascadia Rising on the horizon. So when I look at the hospitals and I look at the emergency management center and I think about this and I'm going, this is just not well thought out. It's not well planned and it shows that absolutely nobody is in charge. And you heard me say about, and I want to explain that privatization of services and real estate and all of those things together do not serve us when nobody is in charge and making good decisions. And I'm not blaming St. Anthony's or even St. Michael's for where they position their hospitals. That was based on available real estate, investment, and a whole bunch of other factors that none of which included emergency management or thought about access. And 5 or 6 people when I've had this discussion the last couple of days have said, "Well, Old Harrison would have been better." And I said, "Is it? Lebo, Cherry Street, the access to that is no better than anywhere else." So when we think about these things, when we think about where we place emergency management, which begs the question of where we place the National Guard Armory, is in
Mm,
a place that's going to be inaccessible. Bremerton Police Station, where they are off Burwell, that's a place that's going to go through liquefaction, and in great likelihood they're going to go through liquefaction. So the Bremerton Police Department may or may not exist in a situation
wow.
like Cascadia Rising. So we don't think about the future when we put things in. It is based on the real estate available and the money we have at the moment, and it doesn't take into any account bigger pictures. Nobody is in charge. Nobody
You
is
think we
thinking
could
beyond the
you think we
election
could
cycle.
do a show once, Mark, where you kinda show us where would you say liquefaction is gonna take
Liquefaction.
place? Liquefaction?
Gorst is not going to exist. The 16 corridor is not going to exist after Cascadia Rising. The Department of Natural Resources made it very clear that whole area is going to go through liquefaction, which means water tables are going to come up through the ground and it's going to become quicksand.
Wow. Do we get, or can we get, seismic readings, beforehand? Where, like, was there a warning, of Mount St. Helens way back when?
That I don't know. I know that they've improved the science a bit. So Mount St.
Mhm.
Helens would probably be an easier thing to get a reading on. I know that they've got better earthquake warnings now than they did. But weather is a more predictable item than earthquakes or geologic movement is. So we may not have any. We know it's coming. We know that the science has said that everything's prepped for it, and we are 322 years in a 250 to 450 year cycle. So sleep well tonight. Uh,
Well, what's terrifying to me, Mark, is, this new hospital is just that. It's new, right? And we know that there are, cyber attacks that affect our infrastructure. Matter of
mhm.
fact, if you're watching the news, there were a number of attacks across the country on, power supplies throughout the nation, which
Yep,
is a scary thought.
and they're
And
going to
so,
continue.
yeah, and they are gonna continue. And so with the hospital being caught flat-footed, and, having to go paper and having the staffing shortages, the blessing in it was that it was post-COVID. If that had
Mhm.
happened during the pandemic, like at the height, oh my man, that's terrifying.
Yeah, what was the old saying? Bend over, grab your ankles, and kiss your ass goodbye. I mean, that's what we're looking. We are balanced on such precarious ground here, and we aren't doing anything except looking to our leadership, whatever that is, to
Mhm.
to take care of us. And it's not going to happen without we, the people. We have to come together and make some decisions and push the leadership to do that. It's the way it's going to happen. And as I said earlier, we don't have time to revolve again.
Right.
We are looking at multiple extinction level events in our very near future from all kinds of sources. And we have to come together and start addressing this now. 2023 is the year we have to move. We can't dawdle anymore.
And I think one of the key words, or maybe the thought process is the buzzword should be infrastructure, right? So
Yep.
we are so dependent upon the infrastructure, but we know that it's not going to be there for us when it comes. So we the people must become that infrastructure, right? We the people are
Right.
the infrastructure.
So
So when
let's
this
start.
happens, they're not going to be able to come and help you, right?
No, the
You
police
have to be
station in
able to help
Bremerton's
yourself.
going to be the police station in Bremerton's going to be gone. Emergency management is going to be inaccessible. Fire departments don't have any cohesive plan. I will tell you this honestly: the fire departments, the police departments, the sheriff's departments in Kitsap County have no cohesive plan to work together. Why? Because the people who are in charge of doing that are under budget or underfunded, too few people, and are passive and bureaucratic in their mindset. They aren't going out and making it happen. So that puts it up to us to happen, which is going to be one of our discussions on a retreat soon about what our goal as resilient ecosystems is and what we need to do to make it work. Um,
So I don't forget,
but
Mark, let me just put out there because I may forget it later. I think we may need like small cells of folks doing that, and I think maybe that
absolutely.
was the whole point of the neighborhood barbecues, right?
Yep.
It's like you trying to get we the people at a macro level, but you have to have it at the micro level
Exactly so.
because I
Building
may not be able to
blocks.
get to your neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
So you got to have people in your immediate vicinity that are going to be
Building
able to
blocks.
help you and you help them.
Yep. We need building blocks, and the neighborhoods are the
Mhm.
building blocks on which to build. But let's talk for a minute, just for a minute, because people like to have tangible things to think about. Let's talk for just a minute about the attacks on the local power infrastructures. Basically, they're
Mm.
hitting substations and they're shooting them. At least in many of the cases I saw, they're shooting at the power stations, and because the utilities don't talk to each other, it has just turned out that a lot more of them have been hit than was originally thought about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The
And there is no there is no NCI. There was an NCIS episode where they realized the power infrastructure was going to get hit, and one of the early ones, and they all went out and figured out who the terrorist was and solved it. There is no freaking agency that is going to do that. We're depending on the infrastructure utilities that we have to do that, and they don't even talk to themselves, let alone each other.
I was ready to have my button ready for I thought it
Yeah,
was coming.
I control, but I do have one comment that I want to say here before we go on. If you think that corporations are people and that then the corporations, any corporation cares about you, or even the majority of nonprofit organizations care about you, or government cares about you, they don't think any more about you than a flying fart in space. Did I get away with that one?
Yes.
Okay, so all they care about is the number of dollars you represent to them. And I said nonprofits, and I want to, and I know there are people that are friends of ours that are, or people we know that are immediately starting to type about this. But let me just say, a lot of nonprofits are just about making money. Did you know hospitals are nonprofits? A lot of them.
No.
Did you know that the NFL is a nonprofit?
I did know that, which is very peculiar.
So when I say that, I'm not talking about you and me and Bailey and the other nonprofits with our sleeves rolled up working here in the county. I'm talking about the people who are making serious bucks as nonprofits. They don't care a flying fart in space about you. They care about the dollars you represent. And let's look at the NFL for just a moment. The NFL cares about your money. They don't care about anything else. Corporations care about your money, and they're not even all that interested in giving you service for that money. And
Mm.
if any of you want to hear a story about that, meet me at the Cups Cafe this Saturday, and I'll be happy to tell you about it. But yeah, nobody cares about you. It's we, the people, coming together that make them care. Beginning of the story, middle of the story, end of the story. Unless we come together, life's going to suck. Is that
Well,
blunt enough?
there's a couple of articles that had, drew my attention this week. One was a fully automated McDonald's in California, with no
Mhm.
human personnel at all in the building, which is scary. And then also, it's either Lowe's or Home Depot are going to chatbots for, customer service.
Mhm.
And so, I'm just thinking about all the job loss that's happening. And so it's one thing to
Self-checkout.
lose customer service to other countries, but McDonald's, those are people that live in the area that those were jobs for. Self-checking, right?
Mhm.
That's the removal of jobs, right? Those jobs are gone. They're not coming back. They're just going to open up more self-check stands. You know, this thing is happening in real time, and it's happening on so many different levels that we can't even keep up. We
No,
can't even keep up.
and there has to be a different future, and we have to sit down and talk about it, and everything is on the table. The only thing that isn't on the table, Marwan, the only thing that isn't on the table are the pieces of the puzzles that people who need to be there talking bring. That isn't on the table yet. Everything else is.
Yeah.
We need
When
people to
you
bring
talk
their
about
pieces.
nonprofits, one of the things that really concerns me, this year is that at the end of the year, and again, most nonprofits or community-based organizations, CBOs, they do great work. Unfortunately, sometimes, at the end of it, when you look at it, and the services are significant, I don't want to take any of that away. But even from us, I'll use us as an example. Again, we can give rides to folks to their mental health appointment or to a doctor's appointment or to a specialist or home or wherever. But at the end of it all, what will it all mean if we're gone,
Mhm.
right? If we're
So let me go back to they don't care about us or the people in need any more than a fart. They don't. They only care about the dollars represented. If you don't have the dollars represented, you don't matter. You know how you change that? By coming together.
Well, then I propose this. Maybe you and I, right? Because we both run nonprofits. We can reach out to a few other folks in the beginning and just say, hey, how can we modify our mission this year to include some of these ideas of moving forward together and answering some of these more existential questions of how we can become we the people and activate and create our own infrastructure, because I think that's missing in many of the organizations, right? Transportation, I provide meals, case management, for resources. But what is it at the end of the day? What is it that you're ultimately trying to do, and what are the gaps that we have to really try to work for? That through point that's happening that we're all intentionally now starting to face forward and roll in the same direction.
I think that that's a great point. I've been pondering that myself recently, and I think that maybe together we need to put together a day retreat for people in nonprofits to sit down and see if we can come face to face and talk about this. Seriously talk about it and listen to each other and see if we can find a way to get beyond the competition, the territory, to realize that it's the service of the people that is the most important. And I
Well,
think most of the people you and I work with already know that.
yeah. Well, I will share with you the list that I shared with folks at the end of the year. These are the agencies, and I may have left some out, so please forgive me. As you can see, Resilient Ecosystems is number 52, but though that's the list that I came up with. That's who we worked
Mhm.
with in 2022 tangibly, not just superficially or, gave them a shout out, like I said, either provided, fiscal support to, conduit support, resources, whatever the case may be. And so if it was just in passing, I didn't list those agencies on there. And we weren't doing this in our first 2 years, right? We had a number of agencies, but but not this many. The Kitsap Great Give has about 400 organizations on there. I think that's pretty good. We're punching way above our belt. So I'm very proud of our team for that.
Yep. Excellent. I'd like to see, and to push the Kitsap Resiliency Project. I think that that is an umbrella that a lot of people can come together under to make this happen,
Mhm.
because it's not owned by you and me or Resilient Ecosystems. It's owned by the people of Kitsap, and it will be formed. And what it will become because of the puzzle pieces that people bring.
Right. So I guess we should form the question to the audience. Let me pop them back up. I'd love
Yeah.
to see, folks do some homework and say, "Hey, uh, answer either on Facebook or, type it in the chat after. We can always talk about it next week. But, do you like the life that we are living? Do you think things are better? What are you willing to do to improve your life? Would that make life better for others? Would that improvement? And what would
Making
the
life.
changes include? I think those are great questions to ask at the beginning of the year. And it's a perfect time to
So
say, you
two
know
other
what?
questions. Yeah. Two
Yeah,
other
go ahead.
questions on that I just put out there is, what is your intention? Which was not in the first group, but it was a question that was asked in that. What is your intention for 2023? And what resolutions can you make that uplift your community, and building a grassroots network from the neighborhood up?
Uplift your community and what?
Then and create grassroots networks from the community level up, from the neighborhood up. Sorry. What, you want me to remember what I said?
I'm just not that fast a typer, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it.
I'm not bad, but I'm not great. What is your intention? And what resolution can you make that uplift your community and create grassroots efforts from your neighborhood up?
So those are the building blocks. Now, going back to we talked about and I never quite got to the end of this, the substations being attacked, and that's going to continue to go on. And it's an idea that if they disrupt the infrastructure of the United States, they can create a drive for an authoritarian government. That's the whole point behind it. That's what the FBI is working on. That's pretty much what's happening here. But let's take a step back. I talked about the NCIS and people coming to save your butt and all that stuff. That ain't going to happen. So let's talk about what can happen. So I don't know too many people that I've talked to in this county that have not suffered significant power outages over the last 5 years. There are a couple people who live right next to power stations, and there are extenuating circumstances for them, or they live between five grids, and they're always covered. But there are people in this county that don't have water in wintertime because the power goes out and the pump from their well doesn't work.
Mm.
There are people who don't have heat because of this. So let's talk about what that might look like, because we have a program on resilient ecosystems. And Marwan, if you can put up the website, called Power for All. And we've been looking at what Germany's been doing since Fukushima, which, by the way, what happened because of a situation so very similar to what's predicted in Cascadia Rising, that the difference is not mentionable. And it wiped out a nuclear power plant in Fukushima, and created crisis, a huge amount of crisis. Now, Germany voted to go off of nuclear. And since 2011, when that happened, they have closed a lot of the nuclear power plants. They've doubled down on renewable power and developing networks to communicate with each other. In fact, they are so far ahead of anything the United States has got going on that it is looks like a completely different science and a completely different infrastructure. One of the things we're proposing here is that we, on the neighborhood level, start creating community grids. Microgrids is what they're called, and we power the houses for solar and wind and whatever else we need to do, and we store the power locally, whether it's lithium ion, lithium copper, um, lithium polymer, saltwater batteries. There are lots of options to do this with, and we create local generation points. So instead of the grid being everything, the grid is the third place on the priorities. The priority is the home first, the community second, and the grid third. And that way we generate power locally. It's much harder to take out a substation and affect anybody if you're generating your own power in your own neighborhood. And it's very doable today. The technology is there. Germany's been testing it for 11 years and doing remarkably well with it. They're running somewhere between 70 and 80% of their country off renewable energy alone at this
Wow.
point. So it's there, but we won't look at it because it's not made in the US. And I'm sorry, we don't have time for that nonsense.
Which is which is kinda interesting when you consider that we don't
Nothing's
make
made here.
Oh, we get
We
everything else there, but no, we can't look at that. Okay.
Yeah. So
Wow.
these are things that can happen. We can grow our own food here 24/7, 365 days a year, and have food security. I don't know about anybody else, but we went to Costco last week to buy eggs because we get our eggs at Costco. We get Wilcox, which is local eggs. They're really good. And we go through a lot of eggs in our household. The eggs were gone. There was not an egg to be found anywhere in
Oh,
Costco.
well, here's what's so crazy that you mentioned that. I don't see a lot of things on Facebook, but I just happened to be on, and Bailey, of all people, had posted something about 5 dozen eggs for, like,
Like a ridiculous amount of
$23 or
money. Yeah.
$30. It was something stupid. It was like, "What?" It
Yeah.
was like, "No way."
The snowstorm, I just read the USDA site this morning on this, and the snowstorm blocked shipments of eggs to anywhere in the US because all the trucking was shut down. And we're about to have another situation of the whole thing. So when you think about, most of our food travels 900 miles to get here, the idea that we start focusing on growing and providing our own food locally, or at least a greater proportion of it, makes absolute sense.
Yeah, I just wanted $32 for 5 dozen eggs.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. And, as much as I like to support the local farmers, I'm not spending $8 a dozen.
But think
I
of,
can't.
the impact of that, right? So when
Mhm.
when Bailey is posting that, he's not talking about for his family. He's down
He's talking
feeding
about
the
for hundreds of
unhoused on
people.
ML King, right?
Yep.
I need the eggs to feed the unhoused, right? So now it costs even more for me to help the people that I'm trying to help, let alone just feed my own family.
Right. But the more we localize, the less we are affected by corporate and commodity interests.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw
So
that
this is
earlier and it was like, okay.
this is I saw that too this morning, and this is the question. Costco, Costco was out of eggs. There was not a single egg to be found in Costco, and they had Terry went by there at 11. They had gotten a shipment first thing that morning. There were no eggs to be found in Costco.
No eggs.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, we definitely have to, in the new year, even though we've done these 45 episodes back to back to back, we haven't gone out to do the go bag.
Mhm.
And I think we do need to maybe come up with some emergency preparedness ideas for families on what they could do, even if they're the, like I've shown on this show before, my little bucket of ready to eat meals that probably aren't tasty, but they will sustain for 30 days,
And I can't eat any of them.
Mhm.
There's not a single one of them that I can eat because I'm allergic to wheat, I'm allergic to corn. And I'm not talking it makes me uncomfortable, it means it can actually put me down hard. So, I
And
don't
if there is a
and
manufacturer that does, the cost would be astronomical
Mhm. And more than
because
I
it's
can
not
afford to
cheap
do.
for the non-tasty stuff.
So,
So
I know that G2 is looking for a kitchen
mhm.
kitchen, and, I have some ideas about that I'm kind of exploring at the moment. But I think that maybe we should start considering in the near future, we being G2 and Resilient Ecosystems and members of the Kitsap Resiliency Project, putting together an effort to help people put together freeze-dried food, which means, we get food, we find some of a grant to get a bunch of the food storage things where you can dry and suck and seal the bags of food, and that we can get some dehydrators and start dehydrating food and start creating packages for people. And there might be an unhoused fund somewhere where we can get some things to start creating food for the unhoused, where we can give them bags of sealed food and meals that they can deal with.
That's a cool
Um,
idea. Or learning, how to do canning.
yeah,
Botulism always makes me a little terrified.
but if you
They're
do
like,
it
"You gotta
right,
do it
and
just right."
food cards and the training that goes with it, and working with people to put stuff together, that would be, many hands make light work, and we can feed a lot of people, and we can put together emergency food packages that people can eat that aren't like, freeze dried whatever from wherever being sold by a guy named Patriot. Um, that always makes me a little nervy. We can do real food, real locally. And if we do the food grow centers, and here we go. I've already pitched Power for All. Now I'm going to pitch Food for All, which I've already touched on. We can grow the food locally. We can store food. A percentage of that food can be stored locally and freeze dried and packaged for emergency. We can feed. We can put out to to the fish lines and the food banks, and start feeding people, as well as create an industry locally where we can have jobs and food security.
And you mentioning that, I believe, Food Line or Fish Line, there was a request from the Housing a Homeless Coalition, that they need some food.
Yeah.
So
So we need to feed the food lines. And we can't wait for politicians and or good-hearted corporations to do it. We need to start taking care of our own. And I'm not saying ignore everybody else. I think that if we start taking care of our own, we will have more to be connected to other people.
mhm.
This is not an isolationist thing. This is a let's step up and build a way of working together, all of us globally eventually.
Absolutely.
So in the last 5 minutes, I want to point out something that Daniel Quinn said in Ishmael, and I want to point out what it looks like today. So one of the premises that Daniel Quinn talks about in Ishmael is 15,000 years ago in the Fertile Crescent, which is what is today's Syria in the Middle East. We developed totalitarian agriculture, the ability to do agriculture and have stores, extra food, and be able to lock up the food and grow society. That's kind of where it started. So today, we've heard about the Syrian civil war and the fact that Syria is basically crumbling. ISIS is there. There's all. I mean, we're not there now fighting, so we don't talk about it as much. The media doesn't cover it as much, but Syrian civil war started because farmers had no more water to grow and food shortages were happening.
Mm.
This is the same Syria that was the Fertile Crescent and the breadbasket of the entire world in which we developed agriculture. And today, Syria doesn't have enough water to grow food, and that started the civil war that has now
Wow.
crumbled into the multiple countries fighting and terrorism and all the other things that go on with it. So that's a sobering thought. Nothing stays the same.
But it's getting worse.
It is. And we have the ability as a whole to make it better. But we have to come together and start having some serious discussions and be able to roll up our sleeves and build grassroots networks and become we the people, as was mentioned in the Constitution.
That's it. Well, let me share a few things as we uh, end our broadcast, our first year broadcast. St. Vincent de Paul, Bremerton, Assistance and Office Shelter. The food bank is in great need of boxed meals, hamburger helper, canned meals, chili ravioli, ramen, and jelly or jam. Donations can be brought to 1137 North Callow, Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday from 10:30 to 2:30. Thank you for your generosity in advance. Another thing, as we were talking about Bailey, they are looking for volunteers. They're needed as they prepare for 2023. Commitment is from the start and close. Sample time 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. The free food giveaway events. Thursday will be Bremerton, and then in Auburn, and Friday in Tacoma. And so, if you remember, if you took part in getting food last year or the year before, especially 18 wheeler, at least one 18 wheeler of food, and the lines of folks, and they would put the food right in your trunk. So that looks like that's going to be back this year. So that is awesome. And this is the work, right? This is some of the people that are doing just what the questions that you're asking. We just need more of it, right? And so if you're thinking, oh, I can't do anything that grand, you can help volunteer, right? The infrastructure is already set. Just, be a helping hand there. That's huge. And they've given away, I don't know, it was something stupid like 80,000 tons of food. It was something astronomical. But to bring that much food in Kitsap County is a huge, huge deal. Um, and then the last thing I just wanted to share, which is why we are an hour early today, is there is an event, and this one goes with the healthcare also. There is a teen violence rally. There will be some speakers there, Fathers Against Teen Violence, but at the same time, be a healthcare enrollment. So there's going to be a community resource fair. So if you need to get signed up for Apple Health, there will be people there to help you get enrolled. If you don't have healthcare, please get signed up for healthcare. Go and see the dentist. Get these things done. If something unfortunately bad does happen and you're not able to get in, because you weren't being preventative in what is it? Not preventative. Is it preventative?
Yeah.
Beforehand, right? You don't want to wait until
Yeah.
the's a problem. You don't want to be reactive. You want to be preventative. Take care of these things now.
Proactive is the word you're looking
Proactive.
for.
you
Right.
know um and I know filling out this paperwork can be daunting and difficult. You don't know what to say, what to put down. Folks will be on hand to help you there, and that is going to be on 680 Lebo Boulevard. That's literally where I'm headed to right now. So that's going to go from 3 to 5, and then from 5 to 7. So that is where I will be. That'll also broadcast, but if you need some help, please come down there and sign up. Get some health care this year.
Yeah.
That's super important. Super important.
Yeah. And I want to do a shout out to PCHS.
Mhm.
They are on the front lines of a lot of this stuff. And in for the as many of you know, I spent a year and a half essentially homeless, and PCHS was a godsend, and Apple Health was a godsend. Don't be afraid of it. Go sign up for it. They will take care of your dental needs, and they can make sure that you take care of your physical needs. Okay.
Yeah, and just one last thing too. It may not be enough. It may not cover everything. And sometimes we will cut our nose to spite our face. It's like, this isn't sufficient enough. Oh, there's wait times. It's not the best healthcare. It's not a Cadillac plan. It's something, and we got to start with something. But try to get as healthy as you can. Please,
Exactly so. And, understand that healthcare in the United States is a tragedy, not even a tragedy waiting to happen. It's a tragedy.
Mhm.
And we are number 27th, I think, in last count in child mortality of all industrial countries in the world.
Wow.
27th. But we outspend every other country in the world by, a 3 to 1 rate.
Well, capitalism at its best, right?
Yeah. Let's say that
$5,000
let's just
Q-tip.
go with that. Yeah. Let's just go with that.
All right. Well, how about you take the last word?
Man, just show up. Okay? Engage, show up, become a part of it. We have a framework. We have the edges of the puzzle in place. Bring your piece.
All right. That is
Saturday, 9:30, Cups Cafe, Bremerton.
9:30.
Yep,
All right. What date is that?
that's Saturday, the 7th.
Saturday the 7th. And 7. All right. So it's 9:30 at 9 a.m. there. So let me go ahead and change that. And let me pop that up there. Cups Cafe. Oh, I got a D in there. 9:30 to 11:30. And then are you headed over to the library after?
We'll be heading over to the library. We've got a couple more people signed up to go, so we will
Ah,
have a fair
nice.
crowd there. And we're going to be rolling up our sleeves and starting the actual work of learning how to converse with other people
Nice.
and
Yes.
overcome
And
cognitive dissonance.
you told me you got a good cohort. So,
Yeah.
if you missed it this time, the next time that Mark runs the class, definitely sign up because you're missing out on a good experience.
All right, folks.
Yeah.
So here
So
we are.
for Mark Boatwright-Frost, this is Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces. I am Marwan Cameron. This is the Conduit. We will see y'all. Well, and then in 2 hours, I'll be live again. All
Yep.
right, everyone.
And we will see you next week.
Absolutely. You got it.